Welcome to the After Party Podcast, everybody. I'm Brenden. We got your main man here, RJ Singh and Rob. If you guys are tuning in for the first time, heads up, we grew up together. We went to college together. As you can see, we've grown up and we have different backgrounds, perspectives, cultures, etc. And so what we really want to do here is talk about current events and dissect them and share our experiences and perspectives to make sure people tuning in have a really well-rounded perspective and can make informed decisions. So we're going to kick things off. Rod,
Episode 2.
RJ, what have we got on the docket today? What are we talking about?
So before we hit up this episode right here, let's so last week we hit up the manosphere, talked about the hot topic, the manosphere.
That's
so
right.
We'll have a link right there. If you missed it, go ahead and hit it and take a look at it, and don't forget to subscribe, right, as well.
There we go.
So but today we got a big show here. We're going to be diving into cancel culture. And we're going to be talking about trans women in women's sports.
Those are big and juicy.
Let's get into it. All right. But first, before we get into those, let's there was some news that happened, recently. I don't know if you guys heard.
Fill me in.
Yeah, a certain person at Fox got canned as well as CNN. Yeah.
On the same day?
Same day.
Are they related?
Maybe. I don't
fired
know.
on their day off, right?
On the day off, right? So I think I want to say 5 minutes apart, maybe, right? So, but
coincidence?
Yeah. So we're talking about Tucker Carlson out at Fox and Don Lemon out at CNN. So those are big. There's some heavy hitters there. So I mean, what are you guys' thoughts, Brendan?
I mean, shit, that's crazy.
And real quick, what are your thoughts on what do you think about just news these days? What's going on?
Man, this is big. I think that both of them being fired simultaneously almost is a coincidence, though. Yeah. As you dive into the details and whatnot, I think there's more there. I think they're totally different and separate. So I think it's easy to conflate them.
Exactly.
But I think the biggest one and the biggest news is obviously Tucker Carlson with Fox News, and they have multiple lawsuits around from Smartmatic, $2.6 billion.
That's coming up still, right?
Yeah, that one's coming up. I believe Tucker Carlson actually got fired because of a sexual misconduct thing happening with him and somebody internally. Forget exactly, but I think that's more in line there, along with him being the main face of everything.
So I think he's number one at Fox. He's the number one, I think, almost number one show.
Yeah, he's primetime and whatnot. Yeah. So is he the first domino to fall? I think that's the big question, because if he's the first domino, then we see Bartanamo, the lady, and we see Sean Hand, the rest of the hosts there. If we see them start to get fired, then I think it's very obvious. This is defamation lawsuits from all the lies and misinformation they told. Yeah. But I think right now this is specifically because of Tucker Carlson and some specific things he said. And
so just going really quick, what you were talking about, because you said the first domino maybe falling, right? So let's just say, so I think Fox, if you label the people, they round out the top 15 or top 10 at least pretty heavy.
Fox is the dominant.
Yeah. So with Tucker leading the way, but then you have Hannity's there. You have what's the girl, Laura
Ingraham?
She might be a little lower, but there's other people there. But I feel like you said, they could be implemented, because I think with the Dominion and some of the other text or other stuff that came out, it wasn't really with, like you said, Tucker. It was more with them, right? The other hosts, right?
It was all of them.
Yeah, but I think Tucker was not as much in those ones, which is kind of surprising that if he got fired, then maybe, like you said, the other ones might, could be dominoes to fall. Because I think the other ones were, Tucker probably involved, but I think the other ones were probably more involved.
Was he the most controversial out of everyone on the Fox side?
Definitely. Lou Dobbs.
Okay, but Lou Dobbs is
here's the thing, as a news organization, you come out and say, here's what happened. Here's our story. Yeah. Here's how we're going to talk about it. Here's the narrative. So they all get in line and say the same thing. So it's weird that Tucker Carlson's the only one that got fired. So that's why I don't think it's specifically
the Dominion
lawsuit.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, totally. So I think it really is more of a sexual allegation. I think Don Lemon got fired for other comments. He had been going through training, had to make multiple apologies. They switched him from the evening to the morning show. Yeah. He berated Collins, who his co-host.
Exactly.
So totally different things.
So what just came out here is that's the thing. So the levels are different, because I think Don Lemon was kind of on his way down a little bit, because he got demoted to the morning show, right?
Halfway
out, right? Well, I don't know about halfway out, but he got just demoted to the morning show from his primetime spot in the news, right? Carlson was still pulling ratings and he was in his spot, so that's probably the bigger news because of that poll. But like I said with Don Lemon, he had the one of the primetime spots. Then he got moved to the morning show where he didn't get along with his host, berated Caitlin Collins, and there's stuff that went off there. Then the whole women in their prime comment he made. Then he went for training, right? And then this recently with Vivek, the GOP. One of the candidates for running for the Republicans was on the thing, and he just went off a tangent, which was so uncomfortable that his co-host Poppy Harlow was like looking at her phone and was just kind of like, and then she was trying to do a proper goodbye. Yeah. No, she was trying to do. There's a longer clip that came out where she was trying to do a proper goodbye, saying next time maybe we can talk more about like China and your stuff on China and some of your policy stuff. And Vivek was like, yeah, and then Don Lemon was like, nope, bye, like trying to end it. Like we're done here, right? Wow. And I think, and after that, there was a lot of stuff that came in saying like, hey, guests don't want to go on the show. Advertisers are looking to pull out because of what he did, right? And I think this last interview was the last straw that broke the camel's back because he was already on thin ice. I think of that, and then that's big for the Chris Licht or whatever, the new CEO for CNN, because he was brought in there to make it more centered, not more left like it has been. And his big thing was the CNN morning show that he was trying to do, right? And that hasn't really panned out. I think it's at the lower end of the ratings as well. And then, why carry Don if it's already at the lower end of it, right? I mean, Don's made his money. He's well off and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's kind of what happened to Don. The Tucker thing is just the more shiny kind of thing is this re-upped his contract like recently as well. So that's just crazy, like you said. Like there's just what is it? But I mean, end of the day, it changes kind of the kind of the face of the news stuff, but I still feel like you're saying that with the news is still gonna be the news the way they've crafted it. They're just gonna fill in somebody else. I think like the Jesse Waters guy, maybe he fills into that spot, and then it goes back to Hannity still, unless there's more dominoes that falls, right? Could happen. But I mean, it's just I don't know what to make. I mean, I think we all kind of agree like cable news and that kind of news is just kind of like dead, outdated, and just not.
Where do you go for a reliable source of news? You have your local news, you have CNN, you have NBC or MSNBC, you got Fox, you have the internet. What's a good reliable source to get unbiased news where it gives you the facts and
down the
you're
middle,
supposed to be able to decide what and how you feel about certain topics. Now I'm curious about, do you feel like a lot of these changes happen because we have the upcoming elections going on that's going to be kicking off here pretty soon, and you seem to see that certain news agencies seem to cater one towards the others.
Yeah, but don't forget though, if it was on the presidential candidates that are coming out, CNN did numbers when Trump was in the White House, right? And when he was running elections, I think Don Lemon, Cuomo, before he got let go, and everybody got raises because the ratings were high, right? So you would probably want to bring in a Don Lemon if you're going strictly for ratings and off the presidential. You probably want to keep a Don Lemon to be that part of it. But I think it goes back to, I really think that Chris is trying to do a more centered agenda, right, down the aisle, and you just gotta get rid of people that aren't going to get on board. I still think there's some people on the CNN side that still are left leaning that needs to be probably either fixed or whatever you want to call it, but it is what it is. It's going to be a big heavy lift for them to do to get that done. But Fox on their end, I don't think they're going to switch where they are. They're far right. I think they're staying far right regardless, right? Yeah. That's their money, right?
And let's be honest, these guys, I'm sure they can get a job. They can get their own podcast, talk about whatever they want to do without as much scrutiny and restrictions.
Question real quick. It also depends on the contract writing, right? I think especially with Tucker, not much more like Don Lemon. Don Lemon, like I said, could go through podcasts, but Tucker Carlson, how much of his person he had was in the contract that he signed?
Talking about like his personality, his persona.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I heard something that was heavily embedded in his contract, so he might not have as much of an easier path doing it. I don't know.
Can he even use his name? But I mean, does he have to change his whole?
Here's the deal. No. If I was Tucker Carlson, I would hate myself, right? You are knowingly lying through your teeth constantly. I mean, the January 6th footage that he did, I mean, even Republicans were like, what is this guy fucking doing? This is nuts. But he's now on an ayahuasca retreat. So I hope that he sees Mother God and that he has a come to Jesus moment and comes
out. Is he really on one?
I hate Trump.
He is?
Yeah, he is.
Oh, shit.
I mean, he needs to come out and like speak his truth, man.
He came out with his text message leaked beforehand that he said, can't
said
stand
that.
Trump.
So that's why go do your ayahuasca, come back and be like, what I did was fucked up, and sorry I misinformed millions of you. But I think the bigger issue here is we're using the term news incorrectly.
Yeah.
We went from back in the day. We went to WSU and Edward R. Murrow, and that's when news was legitimate, right? You get the news and you present the facts, and that's it. You don't infer your own opinion to then help shape your audience, right? And so what Fox realized, and so actually Fox is the #1 news agency in America. They destroy CNN. So they're getting lots of money, and why? It's because clickbait. They only promote. There's not really news. It's opinion, devoid of context and true facts. Alternative facts are not facts. I'm sorry. The alternative says it's false, right? So I think that there's a lot here. It's really interesting that you point out that, like, hey, this is pre-election. I think that's a great lens to always look at this stuff through. But I think I was listening to the All In podcast with David Sachs, founder of Kraft, who invested in us and whatnot, and he knows Elon really close, and he's very conservative, and I have a lot of respect for David Sachs, and thank him for the opportunities we've had. But he had a really good point, and he's like, news needs to come out. I think he agrees, like, get rid of opinion columnists and whatnot. And if there is a false news story, he made a really good point that the retraction to that can't be buried in the media, right? You can't just be like, here's 37,000 hours of bad stuff about election stuff. If you're going to spend that much time about it, you need to spend 37,000 hours, whatever, saying, we made a mistake, this is false, and you need to correct it.
I agree.
And until that happens, news agencies need to be held responsible because there's freedom of speech, but there's freedom of speech until it hurts other people, right? And we have schools getting shot up, movie theaters, businesses, malls, you name it. We have our own capital being attacked by American citizens who in their heart of hearts think that they're being patriots. So obviously the news is false and really messed up. So we need to
going back to what you're saying here, like I agree, like the news needs to be just that, the news, right? You say the fact, that's it. You don't need the commentary on it. But again, somebody makes that move, like, hey, we're gonna be that. I think people are addicted to that. They crave that now. That commentary. They want it. That's why I think, like,
dude,
podcasts are big.
Oh my gosh! because imagine if we had the news that's like, here's what happened, and then you get, if we're gonna have just a two-party system, have the left and the right say, well, here's our response to it. You decide what you think is real or not. Cite your sources, et cetera, et cetera. Let it be. Take money anyway.
I mean, I think we all agree that it needs to be like that, but it's gonna be like, who's gonna make that move, and if they do, it's probably not gonna be the most financial state.
And that's the scary thing, right? Because Fox News is like, shit. Well, obviously, if you have that business model of Fox, you're gonna go out of business because from all the lawsuits that happen, that's not good business. You need way more advertising dollars to justify it.
The Dominion one was a $780 million.
780. The sad thing is that a lot of it will be paid off by insurance money. But you have a $2.6 billion one that I hope they don't settle out of court with Smartmatic. You have the sexual lawsuit with Tucker Carlson. You have there's a fourth one. When you report bad shit's going to come to you. I think this is why CNN hasn't done this yet. MSNBC
I just feel like it just goes back. I think, like, for Fox, one of the reasons they're popular is because, like, they're not now the only right wing, but they were like the right wing, like the main one out of all the channels that we're hardcore to side. We get everybody on that side. Then you have the other side where it's like CNN, MSNBC, and all them, like, fighting for, like, the left. And then that's not going to be as much money if you're splitting that between those carriers. So I think maybe CNN's looking at that a little bit and trying to change that up a little bit to gain a little bit more thing. But again, end of the day, news should be news. But again, dollars drives a lot of decisions. Advertisers are going to be giving the dollars, for those shows, and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, if you switch the show, that'd be great to just news. But again, I don't think it's going to pay the bills.
Yeah, and there's even news channels out there like Al Jazeera that is more open format that does try to, like, balance out the news that's coming out, for everybody to see. But they don't have the money that Fox and CNN has, so you're not going to have multiple Fox 28, Fox 13, Fox X, Y, and Z, or even local news. You know, a lot of them are owned by the same conglomerate company and media company where, you know, they just have the upper hand and you're just not going to be able to find those resources.
Well, then too, you know, you have NPR, you have BBC, you have these news organizations, but all it takes, right, is for a Fox News person or someone outside to be like, oh, well, that they lean more left, and then anybody that's more right-leaning is going to be like, oh, I'm not going to listen to it then. It's fake. It's false.
Exactly.
So there's justifications behind it. So, yeah, until news organizations start actually paying for the false information that they're stating,
accountability.
Until there's a system in place that holds them accountable, then we're not going to have any solutions here.
Yep, I agree. Well, I mean, kind of going off of, I guess you could say, I don't know if you could say Don Lemon and Tucker got canceled, but we'll use it as a segue into cancel culture, right? Because that's our next topic.
Cancel culture.
Right? So, going to cancel culture then, right? So, what do you guys feel about it? Kind of, you know, where we are now. I know it kind of, you know, it risen and it grew and it's kind of been rolling pretty big lately on people getting canceled. We've seen the Bud Light thing going on with Dylan, right? We've seen one story I want to really quickly talk about here, and that is the I forgot the gentleman's name, but he applied for, I think, the superintendent job out in Massachusetts somewhere for a district. Got offered the job, and he replied back to an email to clarify a couple things on salary and a couple things, and he titled it "Dear Ladies," right? And then he later we got it rescinded and was told in private that he should not have said "Dear Ladies." And that was more microaggression, they thought it was. And because of that, he wouldn't be able to lead their organization. So they rescinded his offer, right? And essentially, he got canceled for saying "Dear Ladies," right? On a response. So, I mean, do you guys want to just jump into that? Like, what are you guys' thoughts on that subject?
Real quick, I want to just define cancel culture and make sure that we're talking about it all in the same sense. So, for those of you who aren't aware, cancel culture refers to the mass withdrawal of support from public figures or celebrities who have done things that aren't socially accepted today. This practice of canceling or mass shaming often occurs on social media platforms such as Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. So, celebrities, whatever, they say something and it's not socially accepted. So I'll pass that to you.
It's really a tough call because you have, you know, the First Amendment, you have freedom of speech where you're supposed to have that ability to talk openly about what you want to do without, you know.
The cost of freedom of speech is freedom of speech. That's what I'm saying. I heard on the PBD podcast. Shout out.
But you're right. I mean, freedom of speech to express yourself, but then freedom of speech to call out stuff too, right?
Exactly.
So it's interesting because I think this has been why it's popular right now is because of the political landscape. So you have people coming together and say, okay, well, hey, right side, you say all lives matter, right? So we don't celebrate, I'm not Christian, so I don't celebrate Christmas. I celebrate Kwanzaa, whatever it is, right? So I say happy holidays. Well, you can't say that because it's not Merry Christmas here in America. Well, to you it is, but anyway, so what I'm getting at is I feel like cancel culture is a way for people to, a celebrity or organization says something that's offensive to a group of people. The difference here is I think one side is like, yeah, we all have voices, we're all different, there's billion shades of gray here in America, we're all unique, let's not oppress people, and let's make sure that we're taking time to understand the backgrounds and cultures and norms of everybody. Whereas I think the other side is like, well, this is how it's always been for me. This is my safety net. By you saying this and you're canceling this, it's taking it away from me. It's like Bud Light. There's a trans woman on there. Does that impact how you drink your beer? Does that impact how it gets you drunk and allows you to have fun or whatever you do it for? No.
Still tastes the same.
Still tastes the exact same. So why, if you think all lives matter, why can't there be a trans woman on there? Why do you, what, you think because you drink it, all of a sudden you're going to be hit on and dicks are going to fly in your face or something like that, and you're going to have to ask yourself if you have homosexual tendencies. I mean, this is what I'm reading online.
So my question is this on this. I have a couple things here. Like specifically on the Bud Light one. Let's just jump on that one right now with Dylan on the can, right? In my opinion, I don't care. That's awesome. Great, whatever, right? I honestly think if the VP of marketing didn't do her podcast, this probably would have blown over pretty quick. I think the podcast where she calls out the type of people they currently have and wanting to get away from them and pretty much trashing the customer, that probably made it worse than what actually happened with Dylan on the can. I think if she didn't come out with that podcast afterwards, it probably wouldn't be as big of a deal. And I think it would just been kind of like how Nike's done a couple things with a couple people, and that might be controversial to some people, right? But they always end up being fine, right? I think Bud Light would have been the same thing, right? But going back to that is. So one of the famous saying a lot of people gave hate to, I guess, Michael Jordan was like, hey man, why don't you speak on issues, right? Like on this side, or whatever. And the saying, which again, I don't think has ever been confirmed that he actually said this. This might just be a myth that he actually said this or fake, but he said, well, Republicans buy sneakers too, right? And sometimes I feel like sometimes you don't need to weigh into some of the politics. Like if you're just like drinking whatever, like I don't sway which way, whatever, but I'm like, some of the things like why get into it, right? I feel like
because it's important. Let me tell you why it's important that there's representation of all types of people, because like just like I have a mixed race. Both my kids are mixed race, and it's important. It's important that they see people like them being successful or being in certain places, not just seeing the typical white man or white female. So it's important, and so this is where. Sorry, I cut you off, but I think that's why it's so important. It's because we are a melting pot. We are diverse. We need to be inclusive. And just because there's a trans or somebody that doesn't look like you, because what you're used to as a white person is seeing that your whole entire life, doesn't mean that your America is being taken away. It's being enriched. And that's what they're missing. It's being enriched.
Yeah, I agree with that. We need diversity, show everything on different stuff like that. I just feel like sometimes I'm speaking specifically of Bud Light in general. Then I'm not talking. What you said is 100% on point. Like, hey, I feel like I'm fine with Dylan being on the can, totally fine with that. But my thing is like, if I'm somebody that's like the owner of Bud Light or whatnot, I'm looking at bottom line business. It's kind of like, why did we wade into this?
Okay. Oh, this is a great topic.
Go for it. If you know your clientele,
who's the main consumer?
But that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. My thing is this: the consumer that you're reaching out to is probably not going to drink Bud Light, right? Maybe they made a chance, but your bigger consumer base that you have at Bud Light probably is not.
That's generalizing, bro. Just because somebody's trans doesn't mean that they have any different taste in alcohol, just like you, me, or Rob, right?
No, I think it's who's consuming most of the beer.
Okay, so what kind of business do you guys want to run? Do you want to run a business where it's only about shareholders and making profit, or do you want to run a business that's about people over profit? Money should not be the driver of how we do stuff. That is capitalism, and that is the root cause.
Yeah, but where do we live?
Well, but so what is the root of all evil? The root of all evil is the greed of money, right? So all we're doing is justifying, oh, well, we can dehumanize these people and oppress them if it helps our bottom dollar. That's literally the driving factor.
What I was saying is not
everything.
Yeah, but my thing is not saying dehumanizing them. I didn't say hey, anti-trans on the can. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying why get in the first place if you kind of know. Because I'm sorry, Bud Light is never gonna get up to like a classy level or anywhere like that. It has a general base. It's gonna stay at a general base.
General appeal, which includes everybody, all walks of life. So why not make sure that you tell your customer base that, hey, we'll be at NASCAR and we're also going to be at drag shows. We'll be at drag races to drag shows.
But that goes back to what you were saying, capitalism. Though, if you're running a company and your job is on how much company you make.
But is that the right thing?
It's not the right thing.
Exactly.
It's 100% not the right thing.
We need to stop having capitalism and bottom line be what drives outcomes.
Okay, so okay, real quick, just bring back. I think we agree. I agree. Yeah. It's the wrong thing to do, but it's what we do in America, unfortunately.
And this is the systems, right? Because as a business owner, when you take on capital investment and whatnot, your fiduciary responsibility goes to your shareholders.
Yeah.
But you also have the ability to stake your principles and your beliefs and say, this is how we want to grow our business. That's what we're trying to do where we're at right now. And be like, you can do it differently. You can put people over profit. You can lift up and raise all the voices.
I feel like
risk.
This
is a tough risk
to
take.
But I would rather fail at that and do it the right way that benefits all people rather than benefit my own pocketbook.
100%. I mean, that's the best way to go with it. And I think nowadays companies can grow out of that, like start out like that and be like that, right? 100%. I just think that it's going to be harder for companies that have been set in kind of like that are older companies that have like a standard base right now to kind of move to that. I feel like you're right, but I feel like it's a risk if they do that.
Yeah.
Rob,
I was going to say there was an example where I think it was one of the Super Bowl ads, probably like 5 years ago, where there was a Gillette's. For the most part, simply for men. They came out with pretty sure it was a Super Bowl commercial where they're throughout the commercial, they're just bashing a lot of men on X, Y, and Z, the way men were. The men were, the way they reacted and stuff like that. And after that Super Bowl ad, people started boycotting on the product and stuff like that. And you saw sales just crashing, just like kind of what Bud Light is doing right now with the whole Dylan thing.
Exactly. And my question going back to the whole thing is not just the I think we all agree with the Dylan thing. We don't care. That's great. Awesome. Right? Person don't care. But I think we're going back to though, but do they have the right to cancel that? That's where we're going back to. Because if you're saying that you can cancel one way, you can't cancel just one way. Both sides have to be able to cancel.
So here's the thing though. Bud Light might have their core customer base, but their job always is to grow. If your core customer base isn't growing, you got to find other avenues to grow as well, right? So they're doing the right thing by trying to get into other markets and whatnot. That is what you do in business. So if somebody takes offense to the fact that we put together a product line and an awareness campaign around a group of people who are being oppressed and bullied and murdered for being who they are, and if people don't want to drink my drink because of that, cool. See you later. We are a multi-billion-dollar company. Fine, don't drink it because guess what? Those people that are canceling it this month, so they're going to get lazy, and when they're going to cancel. This is the whole thing on the right-hand side is, we cancel it. Well, we can't cancel all of it because if you did that, you guys wouldn't have Disney, Budweiser, NASCAR, all the things that you love. So you got to come up with the times, people.
So it goes back to there's a guy, I forgot what show it was. He's talking about, I wanted to take a picture because I was boycotting Bud Light, right? And I grabbed this other beer and we're drinking. And I was going to take a picture, and who owns it?
Anheuser-Busch. So so like their attempts are lame and futile and
but my question doesn't go back to, is it lame, is it bad, do they have the right to do it?
Well, I think our base question is like, is there a certain avenue where you feel like cancel culture shouldn't be part of what
what you're saying exactly? Go back to the story I mentioned real quick. Go from that point of view, like you're saying. When it should be proper and when it's not proper, right? Is that what you're trying to ask for, right?
Yeah.
So going back to that story, he said, "Dear ladies," in the thing. I'm responding, and then he got rescinded the job offer and was told he shouldn't have said that, and it was microaggression.
Well, I think the biggest thing that people have a lot of that is there's a lot of different cultures, a lot of different genders.
Yeah.
What's the proper gender you should address? Someone that you really don't know. Who they are or what they are. Should you say ladies? Should you say them, they, him, her, cis? There's 68 different genders that
hello all
nowadays.
Someone
could find that offensive.
Somebody could find that offensive.
So.
Somebody will find it offensive.
If I'm addressing a group of people, you don't be as specific. So like
I'm an individual. I'm not all. I'm not like everybody else.
If I'm responding to a group of women on a email thread, I'm gonna say hello all.
Well,
because I don't know if they're all she, her, they, or them. So like, here's the deal.
So
people need to understand that there are 68 different sexes and genders, And because this gentleman, was he a superintendent?
He was going to get it. He was going to get it.
So a superintendent that looks over a predominantly female industry, addresses them as ladies, doesn't take the time to understand who they are, anything like that. That technically is a microaggression. And when you are in a position of leadership, you need to be aware of those things. You are leading a group of individuals. Like, you need to make sure that you have your shit in order. Now, do I think that it was okay to fire him or rescind the offer? I think they could have had a conversation and addressed it and whatnot, and made sure that they, in the interview process, they could have probably been like, hey, this is our beliefs and values, and where do you align on this, and how would you approach this? So there's a lot that could have probably been done to prevent it. But just because a straight white cis male made a microaggression unbeknownst to him doesn't mean that he's the victim.
Yeah. What if it was a black guy? Would it change that? Why'd you say white?
Because he was a white male.
What if he was black?
If he's a black male and addresses it,
it's a lot of what ifs.
That's a lot of what ifs.
Okay, go
but
back.
Yeah, I mean, as he a superintendent, you are in a position of power over women.
So
and now you're talking to them in a term that isn't inclusive and whatnot, and could be come across as derogatory. So
taking everything out. But end of the day, I feel like if they felt like that was a microaggression for him to do that, that's not the place he needs to be working then, right? I mean, you have the right to say, hey, this is our culture.
Yeah.
You know, this is what we do. That's fine. I personally think, hey, pull the guy aside and be like, hey, this is what we believe. If you don't believe that, it's not going to fit out. I think that probably should have been the proper way. But hey, if you want to rescind the offer that way, I mean, okay, that's fine. You have a right for that. I don't argue against that. Like that's their culture and that's what they think. Fine, you're going into theirs. If they feel like you're not a fit, you're not a fit. That's fine. I believe, again, they have the right to cancel if they want to cancel. Again, it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong to me. It just feels like, hey, everybody has the right to cancel what they're going to want to cancel, right?
Yeah, and who's in the right when it comes to both sides of the spectrum? Like who's the ultimate decider on who's right or wrong?
Well, let me ask you: if you're applying for a job and you get a job interview, you're interviewing for the job. Yeah. You are interviewing for the job until you sign a contract.
Yeah, he's not signed anything.
So
that's the thing.
He messed up. I think he made a mistake, and that's okay. Yeah. It's if I go into an interview and I make a microaggression on accident or do something, they have every right to pick the other best candidate. Yeah. That's the other part of the story we don't know. Who did they decide to go with?
Yeah.
And so
I think the tricky part is that it could have just been a simple mistake where he was just talking out of line or he just slipped up and stuff like that. Yeah. But do you automatically get canceled? Does your name get put out there to where everyone knows the one mistake?
Well, he kind of came out with it, showing like this happened to me. So he kind of
victim mentality. Yeah. So really, I mean, in real life, I feel like this would be, during the interview process you fucked up, and you lost the job. Somebody else took it, but you went ahead and tried to make a bigger deal out of it to get clickbait, to be a victim and whatnot. So I see this so much as just like, man, learn from it and do better next time.
Yeah, if you're an average Joe, if you're an average person, stuff like that, it may not affect your life. But if you're a celebrity and you have that much cachet and reach when it comes to people in society and the way that you influence other people and their decisions, you really have to be walking on your tippy toes on what you say on social media because all it takes is one person to be offended, and they may not agree to you, but they may have a small community that agrees with you that will rally and
Well, I feel like but I think that's just the danger of cancel culture is that sometimes there's a minority that wins because the majority is too scared to say anything because they're going to be canceled. Yeah. And then the minority wins when maybe that's not what everybody really feels. Yeah. I feel like that's the problem.
Yeah, you may work with a company that, you're an advertisement, stuff like that, and you're worried about the way you say stuff on social media may get out there, and then now you're affecting that brand, and your opinion is going to affect the way the brand thinks about X, Y, and Z.
I think we forget to realize that social media are public platforms. Yeah. I think we often forget and think, this is just my network, my people I know.
My friends, family.
Yeah, but it's not. This is a public platform. Yeah. And I don't think when you're saying majority, minority, I don't think that, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but don't believe that white people are actually the majority, or soon we will not be the majority in America.
Yeah,
so,
and I'm not talking minority as colors. I'm talking about minority as in, like, we actually don't believe in that belief. Like over here, we don't believe in like that principle or something like that. And this group's not going to talk, not because of color of skin. I'm talking about like, we're Christian and we believe this, so we're not going to go with that. But we're not going to say anything because we're going to be canceled. And the minority that maybe of the Christian believe, I'm not saying Christian like that, I'm just saying an example, but they believe, majority of them don't believe in that, but they're too scared to say anything, and they let the minority who think that they should be thinking this way win. That's what I'm talking about. Not color or skin.
Yeah, like I'm a Bucks fan. I think the Bucks are the #1 team in the country, and they would shit on the Seahawks at any time of the day and stuff like that. Yeah, the past few games has happened, but I'm in Seahawks country. That's not going to be the case. I would get clowned on if I, talked about that in the public.
Yeah.
And so, this
is where I think cancel culture, where it should be around, right? It's around societal norms, right? Somebody makes a comment that goes against that, and we have the right to individually protest them by not supporting them. So do we need to announce it? I don't know, but I think there's just a difference though here, where there's a group of people that are canceling culture, where it's like, hey, this is America. We want to be inclusive. All men are created equal. We shouldn't have Confederate statues. Why? Slavery. So in general, I think if I take a step back, there's a group of people that want to cancel culture when it is oppressive or racist or things that don't lift up all people. And then there's a group of people that want to do cancel culture where it's actually perpetuating oppression and slavery. Like Florida, Ron DeSantis, we're going to take out all these books that talk about race and races and all these things that we grew up, To Kill a Mockingbird is not allowed in Florida anymore. Why? Because it talks about racism and stuff. And so it's just, you can cancel culture, but I feel like this has been politicized by the right specifically, that is now trying to turn it into a weapon to be like, look at the left. They're doing all these horrible things to take things away from us, like statues of the Confederate. And it's, if you take a pause and you look at it, it's why Confederacy is not, they wanted to be their own country. That's not America. So if that's what your background is, you're an anti-American. So what I'm getting at is you have cancel culture that you can either remove oppression or continue oppression. I'm always going to go on the side of let's cancel shit that oppresses people and whatnot. So that's, I think, my last thought about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's noble, and I think most people should tend to go that way, but unfortunately they don't, right? And I think going back to just kind of the two stories we just talked about, the Bud Light, and we're signing off, or just final cap off, is that, like I mentioned, the price of freedom of speech is freedom of speech. The price of cancel culture is cancel culture, right? So I mean, even though I wouldn't agree why they're canceling somebody or whatever. I mean, unfortunately, I can't. They got the right. If they don't want to buy a beer because of that.
But the difference is they're canceling Bud Light because they don't want certain individuals to have the same awareness and values and life that they do.
Yeah.
Whereas we're canceling things to say that's not right, to perpetuate racism and whatnot. Right. So
I understand what you're saying though, but I mean, I'm just saying at a general level. Like, I mean, I can't go talk to somebody and be like, you have to believe this, buddy. But then personally, I'm in America. I can do what I want to do.
I think my point is that there's cancel culture.
Yeah.
And then there's
fake
cancel culture.
You're making clear points. I totally understand what you're saying. You're saying there's you can either cancel for the greater good or cancel for canceling being stupid or bad or like zero oppression, right? People and stuff like that are oppressing. That makes sense. What you're saying totally makes sense. You're conveying it correctly. I'm just saying the way I'm looking right now is, unfortunately, we can't. People don't function that way. We live in America. We can't dictate somebody like, hey, you have to believe in this stuff, because there's different people believe in different religions, believe in different stuff. Unfortunately, like, who's to say what society's norms are, right? I mean, I can common sense say, hey, nobody should be oppressed, right? That's common sense, I would think, right? Unfortunately, it's not, right? Yeah. People believe in different stuff. I gotta look at it both ways. Be like, if you're not gonna buy it because of that, I mean, that's your right. to do it. I
So-
can't,
So if you go to like a comedy show, say for instance, they're always going to talk about stereotypes, and
Yeah.
you go into a comedy show expecting to have a bunch of
Yeah.
laughs, to relax a
Yep.
little bit.
Shock humor.
Shock humor. World and society is hard enough on everyday life, so why can't you go to a place or an avenue where you can sit back a little bit, have a good time, enjoy yourself, and laugh at stereotypes and all that stuff going on. Comedians nowadays, they talk about black culture, the stereotypes of black culture. They talk about different culture backgrounds and stuff like that, and they make fun of it. But at the same time, if you're a celebrity, you're on a Netflix special or anything like that, where you can amass to a lot of people and stuff like that. Do you feel like cancel culture is affecting comedy, where it's supposed to be a little more relaxed environment?
Totally. I mean, and I too want to ask you too, like, if Dave Chappelle versus a Burt Kreischer talking about black culture, one is okay, one's not, right? If Dave Chappelle talks about it,
it's a context, buddy. Context, buddy.
Yeah.
so many, this is hard, but
It is.
I think in general, comedy is the one place where you can be on like the edge of what's okay and what's not, because that's what makes it.
I think
funny.
that's a safe room, right? That's a safe room.
It's supposed to be a safe environment.
I feel like
But
they're taking it away. They're trying to take it away now.
If I went out there as a white guy who was like, I'm gonna make fun of black people and all these things, not okay.
It depends on your execution.
No,
There's a lot.
I mean, if you look at it back, even
Okay, The
back,
Office, right?
yeah. You can't do that
Michael
now.
Scott
You can't do
talking
that
about
now.
Stanley
Yeah,
trying to dribble.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
what?
Yeah.
Nowadays,
Nowadays you can't.
But why not? I know they come out and say that, but I think it would still be under the.
No, I think somebody
you would
get
think,
offended.
but just
Maybe
the way
I'm wrong.
society
Yeah.
is now, I don't know, people are like overly sensitive when it comes to different things and topics, but
Well,
they have
no,
the
it
right
goes,
to.
it goes back to what I was saying. Like you mentioned, a lot of people probably laugh at that joke. There's gonna be little people that are offended by it, but that minority is gonna speak so loud that the majority can be like, "Oh, maybe you're right. Maybe I shouldn't be laughing at that. I'm not gonna say anything." So then they win.
Yeah.
Out
Well,
at that
just think
point.
about us nowadays. Looney Tunes. You had Pepe Le Pew. You see,
Yeah.
as him growing up kids,
Yeah,
you see
yeah.
him hitting on that skunk and stuff like that. You're a kid watching that show now. It's like, that's sexual assault. That's a little iffy on what he's doing. He's a little
100%.
handsy going on, and so it's
Yeah.
a lot of it's just the way you grew up, the way society is right now, and your cultural background. It's really tough.
But going back to your question with comedy, like I said, I think we all agree that that we all thought that's probably the safe space. It's comedy, right? They're making jokes, whatever. But I know that they're trying to tighten that up too. But I mean, comedies are like Russell Peters, Indian guy, right? He went on Def Jam, back early on, right? And he dropped the N bomb during when the like as part of the joke, right? Got standing ovation, everything in front of no problems like that. Comedy's kind of that social thing, as long as it's like like you're joking and it's within the thing, usually that can kind of rise with it. But I feel like now, like I still think comedy is like, hey, as long as you're making fun of everybody. My thing is that if you're just making like stuff where you're just pointing at one group of people and that's all your every skit after skit or whatever, that's a problem, right? I think everybody can do that. But if you're like, hey, we're making fun of everybody inclusive, we're all inclusive,
everybody's
getting it, right? Then it's kind of okay, cool. It's we're just joking around, having fun, right? But
yeah, you had The Simpsons for us growing up. You had South Park going
Family
up.
Guy.
Super
Family Guy.
Stuff. Yeah, Family Guy. Like you have a lot of shows that make fun of everybody, and so where can you relax a little bit and have a good laugh and not feel offended?
But even
by
Michael
every
Scott,
single thing?
Michael Scott even said they could not do The Office now.
No,
Yeah.
Friends, Office, all those shows. You just can't.
Well, and again, I think we are continually evolving as a society, and over the last 30 years, America has changed a lot in terms of how we look. Right. Like we're getting like the future is not white, and that's exciting, I think. So I think I think that's probably why we're seeing a lot of this kind of surgence up of these topics, because we're evolving as a society, and
the platform to speak about it too.
Yeah, and platforms to speak about it, and the access to it is totally different. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think comedy is like the one safe place. But at two, you typically see a white person making fun of white people, Dave Chappelle making fun of people that look like him, right? You typically don't see a white. The one thing I'd say is back in the 80s, 90s, who was that one comedian that was like super misogynistic and just bashed
like
women.
Voice kind of.
That leather jacket dude, and just super sexist. But it's like, yeah, it's funny. So you get to choose if you want to, as a fan, subscribe to that and align your oneself with that. And if so, you pay the consequences of females then rejecting you on dates because you treat them like crap, right? So, you got to decide how you want to live your life. But I think comedy is one safe place where you can do it. Obviously read the room.
End of the day, man, you got to look out for your personal choice. Your personal choice. If you're gonna go watch some comedy thing and do that or treat women like that, then you're an idiot and you're gonna get what you deserve from
if you're
that.
Gonna go to a show and really make the effort to go to the show, you're probably gonna know who the comedian is or what they're gonna talk about, what the subject is. You're not gonna go blindly in for the most part.
And here's the deal: if I'm Alex Jones and I'm getting cancel culture by left people. I don't give a flying because I'm making hella money off the people that like this. You get canceled by some groups you don't like, that's their prerogative. Cool, man. Like, you can find your niche, whatever, right? Yep. So, I don't know. I think cancel culture is only important when it comes to bringing people rights and not being oppressed. So.
Yeah, I feel like we can definitely have the conversation on what's right, what's wrong. I think that's definitely a conversation of its own, right? Like you mentioned and you broke down. I just felt like then there's a different conversation is like right or wrong. I mean, do they have the right to not do what they don't want to do, right? If they don't believe in something, right? I think that's totally different as well. But all right, so sticking a fork in that one.
Boom.
Okay, our next topic, Rob, is trans women in women's sports.
Yeah, and so a lot of the things you see nowadays, and not is come in every sport, but the first thing I can think of is Leah Thomas and her, participating in, swimming contests. I think it was the championships when it comes to college and stuff like that. I can't remember the school off the top of my head. If it was Kentucky or UCLA.
So no, she tied with, I think, the Kentucky girl, and then that whole thing happened. They tied, and the girl from Kentucky, Riley or something like that, I think she didn't get a trophy or whatever like that.
Yeah, so like that, a lot of things you seem to be seeing is there's, originally they were males competing in a male-to-male sport, and then they may not be the upper echelons when it comes to that sport, and so some of them may not be intentionally, and maybe because they are actually transgender, but there are some that are saying that they're transgender and moving on into the female side of the sport, and then just breaking records and stuff like that. One of them recently was a weightlifter that decided recently that.
Well, he did a joke though, right?
He did it as a joke. He said, "Hey, I consider myself a female," and all of a sudden he's just breaking records left and right when it comes to weightlifting competition. And so the whole aspect.
Did he transition there?
No.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
And so the whole aspect of transgenders in women's sports, is it fair? Is it about equality? What do you think is, the right direction people should take when it comes to transgender in women's sport?
This is, I think, as we talked in the first and this last podcast, I think the common theme again is evolution, right? Yeah. So when I was looking on this, and I'll admit, I do not know enough on this topic to speak knowledgeably
really new.
About it. It's very new.
Yeah.
I would love to bring in some guests to discuss and get different perspectives, but I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer. Where I kind of come to is a couple of things. One is, the late 1960s, right? Mm-hmm. Not too long ago. My parents were only a few years old when this happened, but the Boston Marathon was only male.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it was the first time a female ever did. I forget her name, so forgive my ignorance, but it was the first time that a woman was ever allowed in a Boston Marathon. And now look at it today.
Yep.
It evolved. Yep. You have not just one, you have thousands of women. Running in marathons are included in middle school, high school sports, collegiate athletes, and beyond, right? So 1966, 1967, I think, it isn't too far off. Not too far ago, right? We're now evolving. We're now getting. We're evolving as a species, and we're understanding the science behind who we are and what we are. Like I mentioned earlier, there's 68 different genders and sexes, and we grow up thinking it's black and white. It's binary. It's one of two things, and that's not the case. So I think we need to all educate ourselves a little bit more on sex and gender. But the other side of this too is so was I'm losing my train of thought here.
Women's part of it.
I feel like you see more of the controversy when it's a male transitioning to a female competing in a female sport versus the other way around.
And this is where and the reason for that is because I think it's well known that men in general compared to women post puberty have different
strength
physical
levels.
capabilities, right? So more strength, height, speed, etc. These are all things that contribute to sports. So part of me initially was like, I was watching a Full Swing documentary on Netflix, and I saw Matt Fitzpatrick, 5'10" guy from Great Britain, looks like a 12-year-old boy out there competing with the PGA against Dustin Johnson, who's 6'2", 6'3", can long bomb it. And this guy approached it differently. He went data approach and figured out how can I get 0.1% better here and 1% and 0.2% better here, and he strategized and he got to where he's now. Whenever I watch golf, I feel like Fitzpatrick is like top 10 finisher. He's won PGA Tours now. He's really gonna probably have an awesome career. So part of it's like, hey, this is an opportunity for women to evolve how they're doing things. We're already seeing sports starting way younger. You have more physical training and whatnot. But the other thing is, lastly, is puberty. I think the puberty component is a big piece, and this could be completely ignorant, so I apologize to whoever's watching this but I almost think that there's if you transition pre-puberty, it's more equal versus if you transition post-puberty and you got those physical attributes, even though you do hormone treatment and whatnot, you still have, I believe, those physical attributes, which make it an uneven playing field. So I don't know what the solution is. I think this is just an opportunity for the sport to evolve. And I think this is like 1967 again.
Do you feel it should merge, or do you feel like they should have separate, male, female, and a transgender field?
That's really hard because...
then it's like, is it only male, female to male
it's,
as their own sport? And,
I don't feel,
female.
I don't feel comfortable making an opinion on that quite yet.
Yeah.
But my mind kind of goes that direction.
It's 4 different sports,
Exactly. But I think the issue there would be the talent pool isn't large enough that would allow trans athletes to compete at the high levels, and it would basically exclude them from it. And so the whole thing is that everybody has equal opportunity to participate.
Yeah, I think a lot of it drives so you don't see, at least in sports world, you don't see a ton of females converting into males. It's usually the other way around
absolutely.
to get that upper advantage.
So going back to the swimming, Leah Thomas you're talking about, right? So Emil, who's now female, right, and she's competing as females, and then there was they brought up also there was a female that transitioned to a male, right? And before that he was a top 10 or All-American in the women's league, right? Then he transitioned to a male. Originally they had him still compete against females, even though he did transition, right? But they did now recently, I believe, make him start competing against males now, right? But I know there was a little bit of a hiccup there, like, well, then that person should be competing in that league if they're going this way, right? So I think they're doing that now. But I think you guys, there's definitely no right or wrong. I mean, there's no answer. I don't know what answer you do there. That's a difficult question, right? Because you don't want to, like you mentioned, if you do different categories, then you're like, if somebody says, they identify as female and you put them in a different category, then you're saying you're not a female to them, right? Yeah. Pretty much, right? At the same time, right? So if you put like Leah Thomas in a different category, then you're like, I know some, I don't know exactly. I'm not as educated. Probably should be more educated on it as well. But so, some trans women don't want to be known just as trans women. They want to be women, right?
You're gender fluid.
Certain
times you feel certain way.
Yeah. So if you put them in the separate category, like it's not gonna be work out either way as well, right? It's a really tough
discrimination still.
Yeah, still exactly. So it's a very tough how to navigate that. But as evolution, like you said, you need to do that because there's the one thing, like you mentioned, like golf and how he approached it different. The thing is, you can do that in some sports, like you mentioned, it's just different, right? And I don't know the right answer. None of us know the right answer on how to do it, and it's gonna be interesting how they navigate it. But I want to say one thing though. What's kind of interesting though, I am kind of interested to see how like feminism, like the feminist like women deal with this going forward.
I think their biggest thing is like comes to the locker room aspect. It's like, okay, if you're transition, is a female going to feel comfortable with someone that's transitioned changing in the same locker room that they are? Because you know that they may be 100% in, but if there's ones that are just faking it just to get a quick peek on, you know, the goodies that, you know.
Well, no, it goes back to, you know what I mean? It goes back to like I said, I hate even bringing up this example because I don't want to say it's always like this. It's not, but I'm saying, there's cases like, I guess I think it's the California system or one of the prison systems. There's people that are getting arrested and they quickly identify as a female to go to the female prison. And I think there's one female that had like there's 3 girls that are pregnant now or something like that. But that happened, right? There's it's just so much like it's something we definitely need to work around, deal with. But it's just like so hard how to really deal with this one. This is a big.
You know why though?
New.
You know why? I think though it's because we've all been taught that there's male and female, and that's not scientifically true. And I think that we have to evolve our understanding and whatnot, and it's going to impact sports. It's going to impact the way we live, and for the right reason, right? If we want to be inclusive of all walks of life and whatnot, then it's just an evolution in sports. It's an evolution of how we understand and view gender and sex.
Yeah, I think, you know, sports is probably gonna be your frontier to really go on that one first. Probably how to kind of deal with some of that is gonna be the big one. And again, I'm really interested to see how feminists really do they go with this, or they go against just with what they think. That's gonna be, because there's gonna be a split. It's a split right now between them. I don't know which way they're going. I just think it's just curious. I'm just curious in general how they're gonna do it.
Yeah, they wanted equality, but now it's not. You know, they fought for equality for everybody to have the same.
Well, the Title IX and all that.
But now that's transitioning in, it's not quite the same.
My fear is this. This is a new topic, right? Yeah. And rather than it evolving naturally, it's getting politicized.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We're not having examples and experiences of authenticity. Yeah. We're having people say, oh, well, if that's the logic, then I'm going to do this to prove that it's flawed. Yeah. So they're we're having all these exceptions to the rule come out to try to show that it's wrong, rather than having what the general rule is, and that these are just exceptions and we can deal with these separately. And that makes it really hard and foggy to dissect, to discern, and to understand, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. And again, I think that goes to just the political landscape and the media landscape that has enveloped America, and I think has been the common theme across all of our conversations.
Yeah, I mean, and exactly. It's going to go back to who do we listen to and who do we dismiss. I mean, like, again, the one swimmer, Riley from, I think, Kentucky, she's been open about being against it, feeling uncomfortable with, like, Leah Thomas being there and other women as well in the locker room. Are we going to throw away what they feel for this, or which way is right? Again, I don't know which was the right answer. I'm just saying it's just going to be interesting to see which way we listen, which we don't. And then, again, it goes back to even cancel culture, right? Yeah. If you like I can't say that out loud or I'm going to be canceled, right? So then the other people who are talking louder might, you know, whoever side it is, I don't know who it is, but, you know, I'm just saying this is going to be interesting.
You guys, imagine if it was like the rules were reversed, where so like men dominate sports, and there's all these topics around like, why don't WNBA players make similar? Why don't USA soccer women's team make the same as men's and whatnot?
But WNBA
imagine if a female transitioned to male and then dominated the sport.
Well, I mean, if that happened, then I think all things out the books. I mean, at that point, you just like, I guess the other rule is like just make one league, right, for everybody.
Yeah,
right? I mean, at that point, you would.
I think the only sport where females get paid more than males are tennis, because the volleys that they do is a lot more exciting to watch, because a lot of more back and forth versus males tennis was just power. Boom,
same with volleyball too. I was researching and it said volleyball women are much more strategic in teamwork, versus men, it's just all about power and whatnot. And so women can typically beat men.
But I don't think there's also men's really volleyball leagues in schools and stuff.
In certain parts of America, there are like volleyball.
But what I was going to say is, just going off of that, is I think soccer's only one that's like now just the same. I think women and male both make the same.
Yeah, their salary is different based off of revenue.
But just curious though about that though, real quick, just in general, side topic on that. Do you think it's fair to pay them the same?
No.
Well, I think it comes down to like.
Well, you mentioned also
the
WNBA
NBA is a different organization than the WNBA.
Yeah.
The Players Union has different contracts with the NBA than the WNBA has with their player owners stuff, contracts and stuff. So I think it's like, hey, bottom line is this and whatever. But I do think that when it comes to like USA women's national basketball team competing overseas, like they need to have the same opportunities for like room and board and equipment and training facilities and whatnot, right?
So,
like that thing.
But my question goes back. I think honestly, it should just go back. Hey, everybody should have the same percentage of the revenue, right?
Yeah.
So WNBA, you guys make, well, actually they lose money every year, but if they made money, like you get like NBA players get, I think they have the most friendliest contracts for players. I think they're almost close to 50%, I think. So they make the most money, right? So WNBA, same thing. You get 49 or 48% of the revenue, just like the men do, right? Soccer, I think, should be the same thing, but soccer, they're like, no, it's the exact same amount, I think now, even though the men bring in a lot more money.
Yeah, it comes down to how much you bargain.
Yeah.
Because they recently had a bargaining agreement with the males and females, the soccer at least, where in NBA, the NBA is paying for the women's league where they're losing a lot of money because the WNBA is simply just not bringing.
But I will say one, because it's subsidized by the NBA, the W, because they lose. But
it should be, I guess, because like the NBA, like you're teaching girls to love basketball and they're not just watching NBA, they're watching or WNBA, they're watching NBA as well.
Yeah. So the thing is also WNBA it's a fast growing sport actually. It's actually a good investment right now, I think. So just going to that, I just thought that was interesting just to see where we stood on that. I just think it should be equal, like for men and women in those sports, like just same percentage you should have of whatever the revenue is, right? It shouldn't be more of that. But
I am initially curious though about the concept of, hey, if we want to just make this super equal and whatnot, everybody has the opportunity to play, compete.
I mean, that's definitely some way you can go with.
Trans woman, you compete at the highest level, go play in the NBA. Like, why do we say, like, we have Holly Krazan I grew up with.
Yeah, I remember her.
And she was amazing at baseball. I think she was the first female to play baseball at Hanford High School. Why?
Yeah, I don't think there's any.
Why not allow more women to do that? Why not let women play football? And we're starting to see that with kicking and all these different things.
I don't think the NBA does not have a rule saying women can't play.
Yeah, there isn't.
I don't think NFL either.
Yeah,
so it depends. I mean, it would be the women wanting to do that and being good enough to be in the sports. I also don't think women want a charity like, hey man, here's a spot for you.
Yeah, I think it really depends on the sport because when it comes to football, it's a little different. Getting clobbered by a 240-pound linebacker. Not like they can't, but are they willing to do it is a different story. You go into UFC, you've seen a few clips out there where a female tries to do a UFC fight, with the male person, and it just doesn't end nicely.
I mean, I think there's always like I said, when you said it's a whole open league, everybody can compete. I think some of the leagues are like that actually, but they're just not advertised like that. But I mean, there's no rule saying a woman can't be in it or a trans, whatever you want to say.
Yeah,
that could be a whole
today,
topic.
Right? We're also getting more female referees, female coaches in the men's sports, and I think we might see trans women start competing in male sports actually, and trying to keep it at higher levels. Because if I'm an athlete, and if I were to choose that I'm going to identify as a female, I still want to compete against the best of the best.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
whether it's female or
you can have somebody that's going to be like, just say a name. So let's just say I'm not saying it, but let's say LeBron James came out as like he's trans and he's going to be a woman. He's going to be one of the number one basketball players, men or women, at that point, right? No. So I'm saying, that could definitely happen as well, as well.
If you feel like you're ready to compete in the males league, just do it. I don't think there's anything stopping
you. There's no style,
exactly. How much are you willing to sacrifice to be able to do that?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it's just like you said, it's evolution. It's going to be interesting how things are dealt with here going forward. I mean,
times are changing.
Yeah, I don't think anybody knows the right answer, but I hope and pray that eventually we'll find it, over time and as we evolve. So we'll see. But I know it's a tough subject, and hard one to dissect. And I think we should probably bring in some additional people.
Well, I think as we grow our podcast, I think our intentions are to bring in even more people with some of the experiences and some of the stuff we're bringing in, right? So we're kind of starting out here, and I think just given our, like you said, we have wide experience here, different experiences, bringing it in, so things relatable. But yeah, we definitely want to bring in more guests, so and we can grow that way, right? So,
yeah. If you're interested in joining the podcast, feel free to reach out to us. We'll throw something together and make it happen.
Speaking of that, I think we're at time.
You're at time.
So I think we're just gonna wrap up here, right?
Yep.
So thanks for joining us. Make sure to subscribe. So when you get a new, whenever we get a new video out, you get it, right? So make sure you subscribe. Follow us on our socials, right? I think they're gonna be up here, right, Rob? All right, here. So follow us up there. And like Rob mentioned, if you want to be a guest or something, shoot us a message. We're definitely open to that. In person, virtual, it's all good. We can get it done. So so we look forward to you guys. Stay tuned. We got a lot more hot, heavy, hot podcasts coming through. So stay tuned and remember, hit that bell and subscribe.